Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about somebody that is definitely big time in the news, and that is Kamala Harris. So with all these events going on right now, you have to know that I said that President Biden would step down. I've been saying it for a long time. And his chart represented that there were endings, and it looked very difficult in his chart. So I don't think that he's even going to finish the presidency based on his chart. So now I want to look at Kamala Harris's chart, because I have been saying that she would be president. She would finish out the term. Now, maybe it's just that really she is running the show, even if she's not named president or not. But I definitely see her chart is so powerful. And I've got to say this right here and now to prepare everyone. I've been preparing everyone, but here is the deal. There is going to be a split coming in the United States like never, ever before. If you think that the Democrats are going to bring unity, and of course they are going to be at odds. Republicans, Democrats, like never, ever before. This is not going to be a peaceful run. It's going to be the most dramatic, and it's going to get nastier as every day goes by. But I wanted to fill you in on the chart of Kamala Harris. I said she has a chart of destiny, huge destiny. There is a purpose in her life to fulfill. And I don't know where this comes from, past life, whatever you may call it, but there is something huge that has been indicated in her chart. So I want to bring up her chart and let you see for yourself what's going to be happening. So I think she's going to be president. After the elections, it looks like there is going to be such chaos. Let me just say this. Whoever would cause the most chaos in terms of bringing like a civil war and a split in the United States, that's the ones that are going to win, because the chaos is horrendous. So before I get going, I want to remind everyone to sign up for my Galactic Planner. It is going to be out, and probably by the time this airs, it will be out. We have been pushing for the date of July 30th, but I think we're going to move it up a few days, so get ready. It's coming out. You're going to have your whole chart, individual chart, calculated, sent to you, and every transit that's happening in your chart every day is going to be delivered, and you can download it into your calendar so you can be prepared every day of your life with astrology. How cool is that? I mean, I've been working a lifetime on this. So go to galacticplanner.com and you get your first month free. It's amazing. Okay, so with that, also while you're at galacticcenter.org, my website, sign up for my free newsletter where you will get all of my predictions delivered to your email weekly. And on top of that, while you're there, check out my Patreon page. Become a member of my spiritual community. And if you want to learn Vedic astrology, anyone can learn this. Go to universityofvedicastrology.com and become my student. Let's get going. Let's see what we can see in Kamala Harris's chart to better understand her future and what we're looking at in the rest of the year. It's going to be crazy. 2024, we haven't seen anything yet. And I've got lots of news to prepare you with. So let me scoot over and let's put up Kamala Harris's chart. And as you're going to see, looking at her chart, the very first thing that pops off the chart to me is the fact that her ascendant, which sits in Gemini, is 1 degree of Gemini, exactly where Rahu sits. This is astounding. This represents Rahu and Ketu. Remember, Rahu is the north node of the moon and Ketu is the south node of the moon. These are the indications of your destiny in your life. And whenever Rahu or Ketu sits on the ascendant, you have a specific destiny that is out of your hands. Out of your hands. This is what I see with Rahu Ketu. It's like many things I always say we have free will with. Many things, but certain things we don't. And that's what the nodes of the moon represent. What we don't have control over. What is our destiny that's been predetermined that must occur? And let me just tell you, John Kennedy Jr. had Rahu exactly on his ascendant. Think of how his life was out of his control. And his mother, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, had Ketu on the ascendant. Their life has a destiny that is due to occur. So when I first saw this chart, I knew she was going to be president at some point. But there's so many other things going on in her chart. Let me show you some of the most important things. Well, one thing, she was born under an exact full moon. Notice that the moon and the sun, they both sit at exactly 4 degrees sun Libra and moon Aries. This is a full moon. And when people are born under a full moon, it means that there's a brightness to the mind. There's something to be elevated. And remember this, I look at it brightening the darkness. So this is a good thing to be born with a full moon in Vedic astrology, because the full moon is very positive. And her moon sits in her 11th house. She knows very influential people in her life. This is how she got ahead. Now, there are 2 specific things that I have to discuss in this chart that are astounding. When you first look at her chart, in Vedic astrology, we look at certain planets being in certain signs as called their debilitations, which is really, really difficult to have debilitated planets. It means they're weakened. There are ways that it's canceled though. And interestingly enough, in her chart, they are canceled. So if you look at the sun sits in Libra. Libra is the sun's debilitation sign. So you're wondering, how is that? It just is. It's weaker in that sign. So, but if you look at the planet that rules Libra, which is Venus, it sits in Leo, and that means that Venus is in the sun sign by being in Leo. Leo's ruled by the sun. And the sun is in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. Venus rules Libra. So that's called in Vedic astrology a parivartana yoga, which means it empowers those 2 planets. So even though the sun is debilitated, it is uplifted strongly by this parivartana. And then again, the other planet, which to me makes total sense that's debilitated, is her Mars. Her Mars sits at 27 degrees of Cancer. It is debilitated in Cancer. And let me just say this, it is in almost the deepest, darkest debilitation, because Mars' exact degree of debilitation is 28 degrees. So this Mars is debilitated, weakened. And you know, it is in the house of the second house, which is the house of speech. And I don't know how you feel about her, but I don't feel like she is the greatest orator in the world. She needs to really work on her speech because she says things that she shouldn't say. And furthermore, she's got this tic where she laughs when she's uncomfortable. This is like a defense mechanism. And she's got to work on that. This cannot be okay for a president to start laughing when they're put into a place of discomfort. This is her speaking ability. This needs to be worked on. But when you look at her Mars being in Cancer, Cancer rules the moon. You pop over there to where the moon is. Well, the moon is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So once again, there is a parivartana between a debilitated planet, Mars, and the fact that the moon is an exchange of signs actually pretty much uplifts this tremendously. Now, I hope I'm not losing you in the boredom of all the rules of Vedic astrology, but I wanted you to see this because it's really an astounding situation in a chart to have this. I mean, it is like an astrologer's textbook point of reference talking about planets weakened and how they're uplifted. So she can definitely overcome these issues around her speech. And this is what needs to be worked on. I'm sure they're like giving her the lowdown of what she has to say and how she needs to say it and improving this quality that needs work. So that's important. Now, another thing that I have to mention before I really tell you what's going to happen is I noticed that her Saturn being at 5 degrees of Aquarius. Well, exactly opposite 5 degrees of Aquarius sits the fixed star Regulus, sits at 5 degrees of Leo. And this is the star of Kings. So I always look at oppositions in the same way. But there's somebody that I think's chart outweighs her by a tremendous account. And I already did a video on him, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's Jupiter sits at 5 degrees of Leo, which is on the fixed star Regulus, as well as Donald Trump's Mars and Ascendant sit around 5 degrees of Leo, which is the king. So there is a heavy conflict between Kamala, Gavin Newsom, and of course Donald Trump with this position in the zodiac. But let me just get going to where I want to go with this, where you need this information of knowing what is due to happen with Kamala Harris. With this chart, where all the planets are in the heavens right now, we call them transits, where they're moving. This is how we can see the future. Now, she is in a cycle of Rahu and Venus, which is not bad for her since transiting Rahu does sit in her 10th house. This is the house of career, esteem. I'm talking where the planets are right now in the sky. It's not in her birth chart, but it's in her 10th house, which is very powerful. Very, very powerful to have Rahu in the 10th. So she's been given this position and it's her destiny to be here, to make it as the president. She will be president, I believe, but there is so much that's about to come down and come down quickly. I think with the eclipses in October, the October surprise is going to change everything, as well as I'm looking at where everything's going, first of all, for the Democratic convention. It starts on the 19th of August to the 22nd. They could not have picked a worse time astrologically. They do not have astrologers telling them when to do things. It is the worst time. Mercury will be retrograde at this time. And not only is Mercury retrograde, but it's going to be Gandanta at the very early degrees of Leo. A planet that is Gandanta sits in the very first degrees of a fire sign and the very last degrees of a water sign. And let me just say, by the last day of this convention, Mercury will be at 29 degrees of Cancer, retrograde, which is incredibly terrible. I mean, they couldn't have picked a worse day, because really what it means, what's going on at this convention is meaningless and isn't going to take root, because everything's about to change. Could even change on the last day. And if it doesn't, it just means there's no avail of everything that they've done, because everything is going to change. I think while they probably make Kamala Harris president, we could have an all-out war. There could be some attacks. But looking at this during the DNC, the Democratic Convention in Chicago, we're going to have Mercury retrograde mirroring her Mars in the second house. Everything's going to change. Everything. Whatever they're planning on or who they select, it's going to change. This I'm pretty certain of. And as I said before, I just don't see her winning this 2024 election. I don't even know if she's going to be the one put in place to run the Democratic Party. I keep seeing Gavin Newsom's chart as taking off and being the most powerful. I already did a video on Gavin Newsom, and that I thought he would run against Donald Trump. Why? Because his chart lights up like a Christmas tree, just like Donald Trump's around the time of the elections. They will go neck and neck. I don't know how exactly Kamala Harris is going to be pulled out. I'm not sure about that, but I will say this. This is really important. And I am seeing these time frames. Well, I have a video out that talks about this 23 degrees in Taurus. Whenever Jupiter has gone there, it has caused catastrophic events. One being, there's a lot of them, but one being during the time of Pearl Harbor, when we were attacked by the Japanese. Jupiter was 23 degrees of Taurus, and Uranus was in Taurus as well, where they are right now. We are under the scrutiny of a time of attack. And there is no time to be playing around with who's running the country during this time. This is serious business. And then we're going to have Mars around August 15th, and the 17th is going to be 23 degrees of Taurus. Very close, but it will conjunct Jupiter around the 12th to the 13th. All these days are critical for events with the U.S. Yes, they're going to conjoin together, Mars and Jupiter, at 22 degrees, August 12th through the 13th. Expect some radical news around these dates. If not, it is definitely around August 12th on through the end of the month, while we have Mars cross over that 23 degree mark, August 15th through the 17th. Then we have, by August 18th, Jupiter hits 23 degrees and will remain that degree practically to the end of the month, while Saturn squares it at 23 degrees of Aquarius. But it all begins with the Jupiter being 23 degrees and squaring Saturn the 19th. Get ready, the waters are going to all of a sudden rise. Big time. There is going to be storms and floods. There's going to be catastrophic events coming about. This is giant. And we've got Kamala Harris running things. We're going to see how this fares for her, which I don't think it looks very good with the aspects of her chart, because let me just say this, and I'm looking up when Mars is going to cross over her ascendant and Rahu. Mars will be the end of August. I am looking at this. It's going to be around when it goes into about August 26th through the 31st. Mars is going to be on her ascendant and Rahu. Something catastrophic could happen. This is a huge change. I do not see things going well for the rest of August into September, and then we've got the eclipses in October. Look out, we're looking at a completely different scenario of who is going to be I think the Democratic presidential candidate, as well as who is going to win the presidency. I see it being a close race with if it is Gavin Newsom. And another chart I need to investigate that has power behind it, but we don't have her birth time, is Michelle Obama. So I am looking at these two people as being the ones that are going to be in charge, I think, for the Democratic Party. We're going to look deeper into this, but I know by looking at Michelle Obama's chart, she doesn't want to do it. No, she does not. But she might be somehow reined in for some reason, probably with the events that are happening, looking at Kamala Harris's chart, because what I see, the reason why I don't see her chart having the strength, yes, Rahu and the eclipses in October are going to be occurring in her 10th house. Actually, it's going to be, the eclipse occurs in her 4th house, but it is aspecting the 10th house. Therefore, we have the full moon before that happening in her 10th house. Big reversals and changes. But transiting Jupiter, Jupiter is the planet that gives opportunities and expands things. And really, when you're looking at who's going to win an election, you want to see where transiting Jupiter is. And you want to be looking at the 10th house in terms of who is going to win. Transiting Jupiter is in her 12th house the whole time. This is the house of being behind the scenes and losses. So that doesn't pick up any strength. When I look at her chart from Chandra Lagna, making the moon the ascendant, Jupiter's in her 2nd house, which is that it is aspecting the 10th house from the moon. From the moon, if you count 10 placements from the moon, we're looking at Capricorn, and Jupiter is aspecting Capricorn. But I don't see it from her ascendant sign, and that is so vitally important to see Jupiter in a good place. In the 12th house, it doesn't give her the strength. That's why I keep saying I just don't see it. Now, I could be wrong with this. Maybe with Rahu being in her 10th house, it could be good. She could make it. She could make it. But let me just say this. Gavin Newsom's chart if he runs for president, it is going to be a real close game with Trump. And here's the other thing I'm seeing. Whoever does win, they're going to try to turn it over. So we don't really even know who's going to win. They're going to overturn it. Whoever wins said that they're cheating, and the other side's going to go wild and crazy, and we are going to have the most split country. And it opens up the lines for attacks and war when we are under chaos. This is what I'm seeing. This is serious stuff going on, guys. So get ready. This is my analysis for Kamala Harris. There is so much going on. I cannot believe that they chose the time they did with Mercury retrograde and it being Gandanta. Gandanta means losing control when it's in those degrees. Plus, Mercury's going to be in a Sarpa Drekana. You may not know what that means. Trust me, it's bad. It's the last degrees of Cancer, and transiting Mercury is going to be retrograde there on Kamala's natal Mars. We're going to see. This is really, really iconic times. There's never going to be a time like this on planet Earth. So get ready. Remember, if you would like to learn more about me, sign up for a reading, learn from me, anything you want to know about me, go to my website, galacticcenter.org, and my university website is universityofvedicastrology.com. Don't forget to sign up for my Galactic Planner, galacticplanner.com. Thank you.